Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph John Kuti has finally rolled out government's economic, financial, social and cultural program for the budgetary year 2023. The presentation was done this morning, 24 hours after a bill was submitted to Parliament for members to have a reading. This maiden edition of the brief will peruse the contours of government's readiness to sail Cameroon through turbulent waters. I'm Kejang Henry Atembe. Welcome to the brief. Very seasoned gentleman, and of course very articulate with the mastery of the present situation. Edmond Kwate, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for inviting me.
I believe you must have gone through the government's program for the year 2023. Did you examine the complexity of this year's program, a presentation by the Prime Minister, Head of Government?
Yeah, I tried to. I went through it. I went through some major points, and then I understood that actually the government is very coherent with what they have been announcing. You know, remember during the last parliamentary session in July, that was in July when they were debating about the budgetary orientations, they announced that the parliament announced that as from 2023, the tax pressure will increase from 11.6 to 12.8 as from 2023, and this will be going crescendo up to 13% of the GDP. That is the mobilization of the public resources in 2025. So they announced it. So the tax pressure will increase as from 2023. With this and the program, the budget is articulating in the new government policy, what they call, the French acronym. The French is impôt substitution. That's to substitute the commodities that we import from abroad by local-made products. So that's how they have tried to articulate the new. Okay, we'll be coming back to that very soon and deeply. Ashu Akepe Akinde is the president of the Consumers' Right Protection Network of Vuri. Welcome, Ashu.
Thank you, Henry. Hello to all the viewers. It's a pleasure to be here and to kickstart this new segment of the debrief in English.
Thanks for honoring and to be there as the pioneer guest for this program. Now, Ashu, before we got to the studio, you tried to hinge me on some of the salient points that you read from the presentation of the Prime Minister. Now, do you see a glimmer of hope for the common man come 2023, as per what the Prime Minister presented today?
Harry, when I went through the Prime Minister's presentation and the copy of the project of the finance law, I look at it with the eye of a defender of consumers' rights. I did not go into the technicity of the stuff, but somebody who defends the right of consumers, I see that the days ahead are going to be bleak. The days ahead are going to be bleak and really difficult for consumers, except some miracle happen after the bill must have been debated and promulgated into law. Because you hear of there will be an increase in tax here, increase in tax here. And when there are increase in tax, it is the consumer who suffers. When
it replicates to the consumer.
Yeah, when the equation is not balanced the other way of increase in income.
Oh, thanks, Ashu. Welcome. Now, Edmond, let us just move quickly. I would like us to, first of all, follow an excerpt of what the Prime Minister said so that we could have a grip of what we expect and what our audience expect from us. Now, let's move to the machines. Thanks, of course, we have Collins Wichwang, who is producing for us, and to have an excerpt of the Prime Minister. Then we will come back.
Among the external shocks experienced, there is in particular the rise in the prices of consumer goods due to the uncertain outcome of the Russia-Ukrainian conflict, as well as the socioeconomic and financial effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, which fortunately seems to be under control. Internally, there have been outbursts from certain armed groups That said, it should be noted that the security situation in the far north, in the northwest and southwest regions has improved considerably, thanks to the bravery of our valiant security and defense forces, whose unfailing commitment I wish to salute here. Nevertheless, we must remain vigilant and continue to work together for the materialization of the peace offer that has been made by the head of state, honorable members of parliament, government's economic, financial, and cultural program for the 2023 budgetary year comes in a rather difficult international and national context. The Cameroonian economy has been resilient thanks to the strong measures taken by the President of the Republic in support of households as part of the fight against the high cost of living and to support the national private sector hit by the crisis. In fact, faced with the new challenges, government has undertaken numerous institutional and structural reforms whose dynamics are reflected in the National Development Strategy 2020-2030, commonly known as NDS 30, or the French acronym NDS 30. In this address, I will first present to you the key activities carried out by government during the 2022 fiscal year, which is now drawing to a close, after which I will dwell on the prospects for government action in the 2023 fiscal year. The Right Honourable Speaker of the National Assembly, honourable members of Parliament, given the degrading economic global outlook, the year 2020 was marked by a downward revision of economic growth to 3.7% from the estimated 4%, which explains the budget surplus of 22 June 2020. Moreover, the inflation forecast was revised upwards to 4.6% against the initial projection of 3%. That said, activity remained dynamic, but at a moderate pace, given that economic growth, which was 3.6% in 2021, increased by 0.1% only in 2022. The year 2022 has mobilized the government around several issues, including the operationalization of the National Development Strategy 2020-2030, the consolidation of the decentralization process, the periodic monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of the resolutions of the major national dialogue,
Well, thanks very much. Hyacinth Chow was our parliamentary reporter and sent those excerpts from Yaoundé. Edmond, you got an excerpt of the Prime Minister and talking about the resilience and government's measures to cushion the effect subsequently. Is it not the same sing-song that we've been expecting, whereas households are still lamenting?
Yeah, I think the Prime Minister said the economy of Cameroon has been resilient thanks to the measures taken by the head of states, which to me is not really realistic, because they should say the economy of Cameroon has been resilient. The security problem we got in the northwest and southwest and in the far north. He mentioned that. And all this combined together has normally destabilized our economy. Yeah, we agree upon that. Who are the one paying the heavy prices?
The common man, I think.
The common man. So if the economy has been so far resilient in Cameroon, it's thanks to the dynamism, the vitality of the Cameroonians, of the common man who has accepted. Because when you talk of resilience, it means what? It's the capacity to
withstand the shocks.
Exactly, to withstand the shocks.
But don't you think that the head of state's craftsmanship might probably push Cameroonians to such resilience?
Well, we agree that during COVID-19, for instance, some measures were put in place, but they were not enough, because he's talking about the measures that were put in place to support the private sector. What are these measures? If we talk, I mean, we don't want to embarrass the Prime Minister, but do you remember the measures that were put in place? They were very little, and they were very cosmetic too. There is no measure that has actually helped the private sector to, because if you go out there and look for question, for instance, the GICAM, to know, what are the benefits of the measures put in place by the government to support the private sector? They will tell you they have not benefited anything from it, because it was very low, it was not so strong as compared to the crisis. So that is the first thing I would like to say. And the second thing I would like to say is that if the government is serious and if they really want to help the private sector, that there are better things they can do apart from what have been done so far.
And what are those things? Maybe the government could listen to you now and some of the proposals that you have made.
Well, I think from time to time we write a lot of things that we send, and then I don't really get the impression.
Have you been able to understand from what the government has been proposing as its program, whether or not some of the proposals that you've made are found in those things?
The first thing they got to do is to put in place measures that will increase the production and cut our dependence from the importation. That's the first thing they got to do. And I was thinking something will be done in the new financial law. It's true they are trying to restrict the importation by putting more pressure on the importers. If you go through that law, you will see that they have increased the rates of some taxes in the importation, for instance, and they have counseled some exoneration measures that were put in place. For example, in the rice, the rates of the taxes in the importation of rice, maize, wheat, and so on will increase as from 2023, and some incentive measures that were put in place as from 2008. Immediately after the crisis we got in Cameroon, they are going to be cancelled, because there was some limited rate for the rice that was 5%. As from 2022, it will be cancelled. I understand, because like I told you, this budgetary law is articulated on what they call import substitution. They have to discourage importation. But at the same time, what do you do internally to boost up the production? What do you do? Because if you see, for instance, if you go through that law, you will see that they are putting more and more pressure on the land issue. What is the first tool? What is the first thing you need for the first factor of production you need for the agriculture? Is land. If they are putting more and more pressure on land access, how do you encourage agriculture and make access to land very, very difficult again? These are things that the government should try to look into properly before coming out with some measures.
Yeah, thank you, Edmond. As you garbage in, garbage out, just like Edmond is saying, and let me just pick up from where he dropped, the issue of import substitution, and it's linked with land. And land, you and I know very well, like any other Cameroonian, that I think is slated as one of the most talked problem in courts in Cameroon. Do you think it will be possible for people to have access to land so that they could substitute imports?
Well, as you already said, land is one of the key factors of production. And if we want to build an economy that is built on the primary sector, it means everything is on land. Primary sector is agriculture. And we cannot do agriculture in machines. We can't do agriculture in a studio like this. To do agriculture, we need vast land to cultivate, be it intensive or extensive agriculture. Because when people say intensive agriculture, it is not a 10 by 10 square meters. You need
expansive land
sure, that will be cultivated for a long period of time. They had their dream, import substitution. Now they are increasing the rates, as he said, to discourage importation. Do we have what has been taken as measure in the back office as a backup, so that when we cut down the importation of rice, because that is the most consumed
basic commodity.
Basic commodity today. If we cut down, because that tax approach, we realize that there will be a cut down in the importation of rice. Do we have local consumption that is going to match up with that and surpass? Because it should not just be enough for national consumption. We should have access to also bring in foreign currency. I believe that is the essence of agriculture. Do we already have those measures? That's why I said I read through that law with the eye of the defender of consumer rights. That's why it is problematic. Understand? And now, when you go through the section talking about land acquisition, it is not easy for a common man. It is not easy. You understand? So, I don't know. If we had a parliament that really can put the government to test, I would say the parliament might reject
this bill.
But then, they have always served us as a parliament that accepts everything that comes from the government, and it passes without any resistance. The few members of parliament who would like to resist, their number is so insignificant to create a positive, a real impact. You understand? So it is troublesome, this end of year festivities. I know there's one thing I've noticed with business people: when they just hear rumor, they cause artificial scarcity. I mean, that is done price increase. Okay? Because among the things, money realization, the PM said was the creation of 3 new universities. As a defender of the consumer right, they have created 3 new universities. Good. It's an opportunity to train more youths. But those children will seek admission into those universities. They will need to purchase physical stamps. Those physical stamps, the prices are going to increase. Who pays? You are taxing unemployed people, because the majority of people who use the physical stamps are job seekers, students who are looking for admissions to universities, into schools of higher, and who are writing competitive examination. Those are the people you are going to tax.
And so that is where the government is part of the areas where the government will
you see how the consumers are going to suffer, because parents are going to spend more. Already bread has increased. The price of bread has increased. The quantity, the weight has reduced. So if you were buying 3 loaves for a family of 5, today you need to buy 5 loaves for a family of 5.
Statistically speaking, Edmond, do you think with all the figures that the Prime Minister has presented, Cameroonians can really rely on our statistics?
Let me tell you, for instance, the Prime Minister talked about inflation that was forecast at 3%, and that's the common agreement with the CEMAC zone is 3%. It shall not go beyond 3%. And he was talking that it has goes up to 4 point something percent, but which is not true. That's not the real statistics. Now is above 6%. The inflation as from 2020 up to now, the inflation is already like in between 6 and 8%. That's the real statistics. But what is the nature of the inflation we got in Cameroon so far? The inflation we got in Cameroon so far is not attached to the productive system of Cameroon. It is an imported inflation. So as from 2023, I am afraid with the instruction of the IMF, which is our partner, and you know we are under a program with the IMF since 2016, and it is still ongoing, and it will go up to 2024, I think so. And you listen to what the IMF said some time ago, that the government, as from 2023, shall not longer subsidize the fuel. So which means what? That maybe the government will succumb because
to the pressure from the IMF.
The pressure from the IMF. And if that happens, it means in 2023, we might have the fuel prices increase. Of our production system. No, at all.
It's imported.
It's imported. It's simply because the source where we get our basic commodities, and God only knows that 80% of the basic commodities consumed in Cameroon is being imported. Since our suppliers from abroad are having problem of energy, and everybody knows that economy is transformed energy. Since they're having problem over there, so the prices are, the inflation in the Europe and USA and everywhere is very high. Mm-hmm. So we have been importing the inflation from our suppliers so far. And life is already very bitter because I've been following the news here and there. People are complaining. The bags of rice that used to be 14,000 today will be like 25,000. And the bag of, cement, the bag of everything is increasing. But again, I said, the inflation we got so far in the market is not the result. Yeah, it's not the result of the production in Cameroon. So I am afraid that as from 2023, if the government definitely succumb to the pressure of the IMF, we will really have the inflation in Cameroon. If in addition to that, we have this financial law as it is now, because I am like he said, I don't expect the parliament to try to
repeal the law.
To repeal the law, I don't expect
or the bill.
it. So,
no, but then the government, if the government observes, there can be some cushioning measures that the government can still put in place.
I think they are very limited because, so far, like I said, since 2008, the government has been trying to use all what they got. The only thing that the government got to fight against this type of inflation is exoneration, is tax, is incentive schemes in the taxes. They can reduce the taxes, they can reduce the cost of the custom charges. They have been doing that for long. And that's why I was telling you that instead, since 2008, there was a law provision that actually reduced the rate of the tax on the rice importation to only 5%. That's what the importers were paying, only 5%. But this is going to be cancelled as from 2022. So they will be paying the normal rate, 10%. And already with this law provision only, the price of the rice, people are already complaining, it goes up.
And the common man that you are protecting, as you will be feeling the pains. And does that translate from the projections? Does that translate the hard times come 2023, 24? Does it translate a scenario that we observed in 2008? Could it be possible that at a certain point in time when the people are pushed to the wall, when you get up in the morning in a family that you don't have food, you are standing there, and the children are looking onto you and you are not able to provide, and when you are not even able to eat, and then the child is sick, you are not able to have money to go for the hospital. Do you think that can push people to the street?
Henry, before I take that question, I would just want to add, to complement what Elmon was saying.
Come on.
About the inflation. We have a sustained inflation. That is, most of the products that are taken into consideration in calculation of the rate of inflation are products that are sold with homologated prices. If not, that rate is even said would be more than that. And let's talk about the IMF.
Pressure.
Article 229, the new one that I've added, that they will be instituted a special tax on the sale of petroleum products.
Come on.
This is the article.
So either we go late at work or we go on food.
Coming back to you, it is good. They can increase the tax, they can remove the exonerations. Then there should be accompanying measures.
Back home.
Because an economy cannot function if the purchasing power is weak. That is the problem. As Israeli puts it, a bag of 25 kg rice that was being sold for maybe say 14,000 francs in the month of August, today has gone up to more than 22,000 francs.
That's correct.
So it is already we are already feeling the impact. So consumers, honestly, as I said, the end of it, the 2008 situation because what the two English-speaking regions are already facing is enough. We can say yes, the government has been resilient, as I said, thanks to the Cameroonian people. Because to have a region like the Southwest down for more than 6 years, the Northwest and the far North is already a big
blow to an economy.
Yeah, to an economy. So
and serious one.
Yeah, we don't wish that we go back to that the point of 2000, because if it comes and it takes up the whole nation, you and I might not have where to hide our heads.
The presentation by the head of government is similarly from a macroeconomic perspective.
Yep.
Because you see very much little, because I know now members of parliament, or rather ministers, will be moving to answer questions,
sure,
to defend
their budget,
appearing before the lawmakers. But then from a macroeconomic perspective, the common man is not seeing himself. I remember during the last government economic program, the government talked of sustaining the livestock sector.
Yeah.
I don't know how much has been done to that directives, because he actually tried to give a balance sheet of 2022.
Yeah.
But we see that there is enough from the livestock sector to eat, though we eat with pains because of the cost.
Sure.
Could that be another sector that we should really consider, because it's a very productive sector?
Look, there should be a strategy, a global strategy, to boost up the production of everything in Cameroon, the production as a whole.
Yeah.
You were asking me a question, what have you people proposed to the government to actually sustain the economy of our country? When the inflation started, and when the crisis started in Ukraine with Russia, I foresaw this situation coming, because there was already a problem of energy around the world. And I said the first thing we got to do is to avoid Cameroon get into the problem of energy. Because if today you ask the question from to my co-panelists to find out if this situation will force Cameroonians to go into the street. What will finally definitely force Cameroonians to go into the street is if there is a single franc added to the price of fuel. I can tell you that. And the only way to fight against this, I proposed to the government to make sure they rehabilitate Sonara so that Sonara should be productive and limit the importation of fuel, because Cameroon actually is wasting a lot of money. Though we gain a bit of money because the price of the crude oil is a little bit high in the international market now, but Cameroon does not benefit from it simply because the little profit we make out of it is spent to import fuel that we consume. So this can only be arranged if we rehabilitate Sonara and allow Sonara to actually produce, to refine the fuel that we consume in Cameroon. Secondly, today, the 50 kilogram bags of fertilizer that people used to buy at 3,000 is now 30,000.
It's now 30,000.
How do we encourage agriculture in a country where people are actually buying fertilizers at 30,000 per bag of 50 kilograms? It's not possible. But the fertilizer we are importing from Russia is made out of what? Gas. It's what we call hydrofertilizers. And Cameroon is producing gas. So I said, let's put in place a program to transform the gas, to use the gas that we have to actually produce fertilizers in Cameroon, to reduce the importation of fertilizers and boost up the agricultural production in Cameroon. That's the only way we can actually, because if you got companies like CDCs, like Del Monte, Socapalm, and all these companies, all these big corporations, if they have to import fertilizers at that price, can you imagine the price of oil tomorrow? Because they would only put this price into the final price of the product, and
cost of production.
The cost of production, and then it will become very expensive. So I propose to the government, instead of selling our gas like we are doing now, let's transform part of this gas into, let's put up in place a factory to transform gas and transform it into and produce fertilizers in Cameroon to reduce the cost of importation of fertilizers. Nobody listened to that. Today, when IMF started with putting pressure on Cameroon to quit out the subsidies they are putting on fuel, I told them, you can continue to subsidize the fuel conditionally that we do everything to rehabilitate Sonara before 2023, because I knew that this pressure will be mounting on the government as from 2023. What has been done? Have you got the impression that something has been done in Sonara?
I doubt.
Minister visits.
Now, you talked about agriculture, and let me just swing to Ashu. When you look at the waste that we have, it's estimated about 2 million tons of food that is wasted across Cameroon, be they from the farms, be they from our ports in our homes. Do you think it is a problem when we don't have storage facilities we can keep some of these products from the farms to sustain and run for 3, 4, 5 years? Because I spoke with one person without really calling the name. What we consume as, pomme de France and other fruits from Europe, these are things that have been kept in oxygen for sometimes 4, 5 years.
For long.
But they come out as if they have been harvested
fresh
today. Now, do you think we still have a very serious problem in handling that aspect? To cut waste, whereas people are hungry, millions of mouths are hungry.
When you say, do we still have? The problem is constant because there has been no solution. I was coming back to the Prime Minister's presentation. He presented the challenges that the government and the economy has had, the external factors. He mentioned the Russo-Ukrainian crisis. He mentioned the COVID-19 crisis. But it's good to know that every crisis is a business opportunity. Since the COVID and the Russian-Ukraine crisis came out, what business niche has the Cameroon government carved out of that? It brings to the question we've just asked, to what Edmond just said. The Russo-Ukrainian war breakout. We have hiking prices of wheat. What do we do as a substitute? We have maize that could substitute. Maize have a life cycle of 3 months. That is why at times I blame even our businessmen in this country. Our businessmen are not serious. They are very interested in buying and selling. They're not interested in investing.
But now, it still comes back to the problem of land acquisition. Do you think that they will be able to acquire those lands?
Land acquisition is more challenging to individuals like you and I. But to corporate bodies, they can handle it. Honestly speaking, corporate bodies, they can handle it. When it is for you and I, we say, okay, we have a very poor purchasing power. But the corporate bodies, they can do it.
Cameroon has 11 million of arable land. This statistics comes from the Investment Promotion Agency. I'm talking about arable land, where we could cultivate, for
rice, wheat, maize,
etc., extensive agriculture. But we still find very difficult to have this. What is the real problem behind?
And it's good even to know that quantity of arable land, a good portion of it, you can cultivate for more than 5 years. Fertilizers.
That's correct. Because that's still virgin.
What I'm saying is that our businessmen are not interested in investing. They're interested in buying and selling. Because when this crisis broke out, if there was just one businessman who went into maize production, we're talking about COVID-19, before the Ukrainian crisis, because maize has a lifespan of 3 months, production lifespan of 3 months. You know how many cycles you have per year? You have 4 cycles per year. We can replace wheat is grown in Cameroon. What has been done? About transformation and preservation, we do not have. That is why we have a lot of wastage. And we talk about preservation, we need energy. With the limping nature of our energy sector, how can that stand? A lot of investment has been done in that sector, but we are not seeing the outcome.
I mean, people are not feeling the effect.
We are not seeing the outcome.
Pressure on land, Edmond, versus climate change. Now we need biotechnology, because they will tell you, in as much as we need land, in as much as there's pressure for infrastructure, agriculture, we need to contain the forest and fight climate change, we need to regulate that. Do you think the government is trapped between the axe and the needle?
Before answering that question, which I don't think it should be a problem in Cameroon, because we should not be, we should not be listening to those European countries who actually destroyed the world, and now they are trying to prevent us from developing our own economy by opposing us some environmental climate change. I don't say we should not preserve climate. I don't say we should go and destroy everything. But I don't think if we want to cultivate in Cameroon that we have to destroy climate and so on. We have to protect the climate, I agree. We have to preserve the climate, I agree. But does that mean we should follow our arms and do nothing and allow? You mentioned the quantity of available land that we have in Cameroon. Meanwhile, we're still importing maize, rice, wheat, potatoes, palm oil, green beans, and all these type of things we're importing. Does that mean we have to preserve, we have to allow people, starve Cameroonians, simply because we have to preserve a climate or climate change? No, I don't agree on that. The first thing we got to do, you mentioned that food that actually waste in Cameroon, simply because how many tons of food you mentioned?
About 2 million tons.
Do you know how the quantity of food that people are producing in the rural area that they are not able to carry into the town? And
which food, we have not computed yet.
Yes. Actually, do you know the quantity? If you go here, we are in Douala. If you go to Yabassi, which is in the littoral, if you go to Yabassi and see the type of food they are producing there, very good quantity food and very good quality food they are producing in Yabassi, yet you cannot have a truck to go to Yabassi and carry this food and bring to Douala.
Before you continue, please, just let us remind our televiewers that Yabassi, from Douala to Yabassi, is about 37 kilometers.
37 kilometers, maximum 50 kilometers. Maximum 50 kilometers.
But very inaccessible.
Very inaccessible. Be it from Douala or from Bafoussam.
From the west.
From west. Because if you go to, when you are in Bafang, for instance, for you to arrive in Konjok, it's like 40 kilometers. But it might take you 2 days to get there. Why can't we open up this production basin? Why can't we open them up? So that is the problem in Cameroon. That's the first thing. They have to open up this production basin. And secondly, if we are serious and that we want to promote agriculture in Cameroon, if we are serious, look, it's not by increasing the rate of taxes in the importation and so on, because, okay, now, as from January, we'll be applying the new rate of taxes in the production, in the importation of rice and wheat, maize, and so on. Okay. I mean, how are we going to have the local
farmers or improve the local industries?
How do we do that? Is it by the operation of Holy Spirit that, okay, as from 2023,
food should come on the table?
Rice will be in the farms in Cameroon? No. I want to say that in some, I mean, I don't know what year, but some days in the past of Cameroon, we're producing rice in Cameroon. We had Soderim, we had Semri that were producing rice in Cameroon. We had Sodeble that was producing wheat in Cameroon. We had Maïskam that was producing maize in Cameroon. We had all these companies that was actually, the only thing is to innovate the production tools in Cameroon and bring in the technology that actually help in boosting up the production. Because somebody, he passed away, I'm sorry, Mr. Benan Jonga. He went to Yagua and then he realized that there was a huge stock of rice in the warehouse simply because this rice could not be actually put in the market. Why? Because we don't have the technology to actually transform this rice. Can you imagine that? What is the cost of the technology to actually transform rice? What is the cost of that technology? Is it 100,000 billions? We are talking of things that could cost maximum 3 billion, 5 billion maximum to actually have a huge, modern
transformation plant
in Cameroon. That's what we are talking about. Meanwhile, we're spending if you see since 2008 up to now, you see what Cameroon has, the Cameroon government has lost in the exonerations. That has actually gone into the pocket of individuals and other people in the, in the foreign countries. That is enough money that could have actually helped Cameroon to import good technology and boost up the production in Cameroon. What happened to the company that was actually transformed tomato in Fumban? Scamful. What actually happened to it? If I tell you the story of that company,
in fact, we have to lament. Now, Dr. Louis-Marie Capde is SDF, Minister of the Economy, Finance and Trade. I spoke to him on how this new finance law will impact the common man. This is Charles, what he had to say.
There are many improvements in the 2023 finance law project, but before it passes at the level of the National Assembly, there are many adjustments to be done. When I say improvement, it is in terms of the living standard and the way we can do to improve or to ameliorate the living condition of Cameroonians. So, for instance, the government wants to improve local production. This is interesting. But at the same time, that government complicates land acquisition procedure. These have to be addressed before the bill passes, because you cannot at the same time want people to produce massively and at the same time you complicate land acquisition, because everything starts by land. The government have to facilitate land acquisition. This is the starting point. Also, the government wants to improve local acquisition of raw materials or inputs. This is interesting. It means that by that law, the market can be created for a local producer, local maize, wheat producer, for instance, or even local flour like cassava, potato, etc. This is interesting. But the difficulties is that these incentives is limited to the public sector, to the public acquisition. This is not interesting. It is interesting to extend this incentive to all the buyers, to all the off-takers, not only the public sector. They will help really to generalize the law, the impact of such a measure. Also, in terms of agro-industry, you can see that there are incentives, but incentives just for beer, like local raw materials. They want to give like 30% reduction to companies who buy locally their input to make beer. This is interesting, but why can't they do it?
Well, Dr. Louis-Marie Capde, he's a lecturer at the University of Maroua and a researcher. Ashu, he was almost speaking our minds.
Yeah, as I was saying, it is good to make Cameroon understand that taxes are not bad. Taxes.
Nobody quarrels with that.
Mm-hmm. In every civilized economy, there are taxes. But the taxes should be friendly, and the money gotten from those taxes should be used properly. So that is the problem we have in our country. When I read through the document, the one I had, I saw that there's a lot of exoneration for agriculture, for this, and he was right. As I earlier mentioned, when you go now for land acquisition, it becomes
problematic.
But I still insist corporate bodies can afford if the people are really into investing in it. That's why I have a problem with our businessmen who are only interested in buying, selling. They're not interested in transforming?
That's simply because the businessmen in Cameroon were more in the spirit of quick money making. Simply, nobody wants to actually, go into the farm and then spend 3 months, produce maize, and then transform it into I don't know what, produce wheat, transform it into flour, and so on. Nobody wants to do that. It's very quick. When you send money out there, and then they put maize, rice in bags, send it here in the port, you put it in the warehouse, and then you send it to the market, and then you make a huge profit.
Who have been enduring indeed to wait for the time to cultivate. Now, but the 5 ecological zones, our researchers are saying that we can now produce wheat in all the ecological zones.
Of course, we have been doing that. This was possible. That's why I told you in the past days in Cameroon they were producing wheat in Cameroon. So the was producing wheat in Cameroon. It's possible. But problem is, I don't want to lay blame too much on the businessmen in Cameroon. We got to be a little bit flexible with them, because the production factors in Cameroon are very heavy. Because the rice produced so far in Cameroon is much more expensive than the rice imported from Thailand and so on. Do you know why? Because apart from our monetary problem, that actually it is a very huge problem for our competitivity. We also have some internal production factors that actually add impediment to the production in Cameroon, and that is why when you produce something in Cameroon and you put it in the market, you will have the impression that no matter how much you reduce the price, it will appear much more expensive than the product imported from abroad. That is a problem, and it is a problem the government has to look into it. First things that is a real impediment to the production in Cameroon is our monetary system. Our money, our currency is too heavy, is too strong for our economy. Because actually what we're using, the CFA we're using, is a euro. We're not having currency. It's a euro. And a euro for an economy, for a little structural economy like ours, is too strong for the production system in Cameroon. So that is why those who produce rice in Cameroon, for instance, they prefer to sell it to Nigeria, to Gabon, and to Equatorial Guinea.
Thanks very much. The consequential increase in taxes on some imported goods will certainly have ripple effects on the consumers, and there are bound to be frustrations. After the Prime Minister presented the rollout government economic program, some members of Parliament actually reacted. Let's get this quick reaction. When we come back, gentlemen, we will be signing out.
Of what happened in 2023 and what we expect to see in 2023.
Yes, many has been done. I cannot exactly give you in detail what we have had, but many has been done, and we are expecting to have more in 2023. This is why I'm saying that the program which has been presented has made a large diffusion of. First of all, we had what we had in 2022, and now it gave us the orientation for 2023. And when we're going to examine now the project of finance law, we'll go with speed, because we know that everything has already been said, and we will not have to check or see whether there is something which we have not heard first. So we go in hurry, or we go rapidly, if you allow me the word. And I think that is better like that. You're welcome.
Well, 2023 is actually a year that is pregnant with a lot of realizations that the government intends to carry out. And we intend to accompany the government in the hub, in the domains of infrastructure, and in the domains of education to see that Cameroon moves towards emergence.
The government's financial, cultural, and economic program for 2023.
Yes, thank you very much. I think I listened to the Prime Minister very keenly. I followed up what the government has to do for this 2023. I think there is one thing I've taken back. the courage and the determination of the government to keep everything aside, but to make sure that the Cameroonians feel the impact of the budgetary allocations. When I look at what the government has prepared, as per what the Prime Minister presented to us, I think the government has mustered a lot of courage, despite the financial constraints caused by the international problems we have and also internal problems. The government is doing everything possible to make sure that it meets up with the aspirations of the people. I think I, as the people's representatives, am very, very pleased with what the government is doing. And I think I can only encourage the government and accompany the government to accomplish these goals.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thanks indeed, Hyacinth Chair, for that. Those excerpts. MPs are saying that, well, the government gave an orientation. Ashu, is that an economic language or a political language to you?
Well, he is a politician and a member of the ruling party, so his language is understood. As we said here in the introductory, we don't expect any resistance of this bill in the parliament. We will just pass as he came in. But then, as the expert, the professor first of all said there are certain things that they really need to adjust. And we're also saying taxes are not evil. They must be people-friendly. As a defender of consumers' rights, we want the household basket to be full.
Even if it's not full, it should be half full.
No, it should be full. The family, because when the family go hungry, the family head cannot work.
Should eat to their fill.
To their satisfaction. If the family does not eat to the satisfaction, the family head cannot work with ease. Sure. Even the MPs who are talking there, maybe it is because today they are in the National Assembly, they have a lot of allocations. The next Monday when they are booted out, you will see them depreciate within 1 month.
Oh, come on.
So we want the budget to be people-friendly so that the household should feel the impact. But at this, we are still waiting to, after the bill must have passed the parliament, going to promulgate it into law, to hear on the other side of the scale what will come to support the purchasing power
of the common man. Now, let us just wrap up with you. What are the major sectors that we stay expecting, which is still very problematic because we're just talking about economy, because everything is hinged on the economy, is the health sector. Sure. Which we will come back to it subsequently anyway.
The health sector and the education
and
too.
Education.
In economy, we call this, I mean, education, health, and so on. We call this economy irreal. That is, it does not produce money. Instead, it swallows money. It swallows a lot of money. So the economy, the sector real, need to be strong enough to generate enough income to support these other sectors. If we don't have enough money, and that's how we also explain inflation, because inflation is to subsidize sectors with money that does not exist, sectors that does not produce any money. That's how we also explain inflation. So we got to put in mind that for us to have good health, good education, infrastructure, we need to have good economy that actually produce money, generate incomes that will support these other sectors. But what we are saying here is that if the government really wants to help Cameroonians to develop their economy, to improve the growth in the economy, they need to improve the cost of production factors. One, I said, is monetary system. Secondly, is energy. If we do not, solve the problem of energy in Cameroon,
we'll have problems.
No, the production is, forget about it, forget about industries.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming and making it for this first edition of the program, Debrief in English. And, of course, to you televiewers, we want to thank you graciously for always being there with us. But we know that we will still have much to talk when the bill must have sailed through the parliament.
Sure.
I'm Kejang Henry Yatimi in Douala. Goodbye.